Thus, you could say from a very early age, I was encouraged to tell stories that scare people. It was this love of fear-mongering that brought me to writing crime fiction, and more specifically, writing Sarah Linton. If there was any one thing that took me down the road to Grant County, it was Sarah. She's basically everything I am not. Tall, red-headed, a medical doctor, and a bossy older sister. What we have in common is the desire to understand why people do the horrible things they do. Sarah is in a unique position to study possible answers to this question. As a pediatrician, she sees the potential of life walk through her door every single day. As a medical examiner, she witnesses firsthand the destruction wrought by violent death. I've spent the last 17 years writing about Sarah and other strong women, and one dynamic has not changed. It's incredibly difficult to write about an accomplished, smart woman without people hating her. As a society, we're wired to celebrate those characteristics in men, but we're incredibly suspect and critical of women who share the same qualities. To make Sarah feel less like a superhero and more like a woman you'd meet in the grocery store, I allowed her to make mistakes. Sometimes big mistakes that led to the bad guys, temporarily, getting away. I gave her a domineering mother and a baby sister who's always there to call her on her shit. Sarah's father loves her, but he also recognizes her faults. Lena Adams can't stand her, but that's mostly because Sarah thinks that Lena is too emotionally driven and dangerous to be trusted with Jeffrey Tolliver's life. To this day, not many give Sarah credit for being right. I remember quite clearly where I was when I decided that Jeffrey would die. I had just finished writing A Faint Cold Fear, the third Grant County novel, and it was one of those situations where my lizard brain figured out something important before my conscious brain did. I felt really hot and shaky, like I was getting the flu, and after a few hours of this, it came to me as a fully formed idea. Jeffrey had to die. I've always been the type of writer who thinks a few books ahead of the one I'm working on. Even if I don't have a firm plot, I know where the characters are going. At that point, in writing the Grant County series, I could clearly see the trajectory of Jeffrey and Sarah's relationship, and it was heading toward a happy ending. Reader, you think you want stories about people being happy, but you really don't. Happy people are boring. Either they have to keep fighting and breaking up, or they have to cheat on each other, or something awful has to happen to keep them interesting. After all they had been through, I couldn't see Jeffrey and Sarah choosing any of these false paths. Perhaps, more importantly, I did not want to end up being the Jessica Fletcher of Grant County. I mean, come on, why would anyone live in this incredibly violent, dangerous town? If I were to set stories in a large city, say Atlanta, or write about a state cop rather than a small-town chief of police, wouldn't that open up my opportunities to kill people in new and exciting places? There were 3 more novels to come in the Grant County series, so I had a chance to plot out exactly how Jeffrey would die. By the time I wrote Faithless, I had started planting clues in the plots that would indicate to the careful reader the danger lurking ahead. Before writing the last novel in the series, I wrote a book I called A Standalone about a new character named Will Trent. I say that I called it a standalone because only my editor, my agent, and I knew that it was not. A lot of times authors are asked how long it takes to write a book. To me, it's not the writing that takes the most time, it's thinking about the characters. Will Trent was a character I thought about for 3 years. I liken his formation to a grain of sand turning into a pearl inside the oyster shell of my mind. I didn't want to just write another Jeffrey and set him in Atlanta. I wanted to think about Will as a fully formed man. What are his values? What kind of cop is he? What kind of man is he? Who are his friends? What is his situation like at work? Unlike Jeffrey, who was raised by an alcoholic mother and a convict father, Will grew up in state care, where he suffered a tremendous amount of abuse. I feel like this early exposure to violence made Will very wary of physical altercations, and in fact afraid of what violence can unleash inside of him. While Jeffrey was not afraid to slap around a suspect, Will is more likely to talk to them. Jeffrey, a former college athlete, is extremely self-confident in his body. Will